Greetings, Moody students, interpreters of the Word of God. Just a brief introduction to this week's work. You do have the devotional there. I trust that'll come across as timely for you. Do note that as we move into this week, we're going to cross the halfway mark in the course. That's right. We're already 3.5 weeks at the middle of this week into the course, so you'll be halfway done. And that perhaps comes as good news to some and as a little intimidating to others. But that's sort of the nature of the devotional this week, to sort of address that sense of being overwhelmed. So I trust that the devotional will be an encouragement to you. In your 4th week's work, we're dealing with interpreting the Old Testament poetry and prophecy. And those are joined together because a lot of Old Testament prophecy is actually written in Hebrew poetry. And let me mention to you that probably the chief and overwhelming characteristic of Hebrew poetry is not rhyme like you and I are used to in English poetry, but rather parallelism. And as you'll be finding out, there's 3 primary forms of parallelism. So do work through the material and just rejoice in the things you're learning as how God put together the poetic sections of the Old Testament, namely Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, a good part of Job, and a good part of a lot of the prophets is written in Hebrew poetry. This is one reason why some of the prophetic passages become a little problematic to interpret. So learn well the characteristics of Hebrew poetry so that you can identify them and then use those skills in interpreting the Word of God. You're going to be reading about 35 pages from Klein's book, Introduction to Biblical Hermeneutics, this week. You've got only 2 lectures to listen to, one on Old Testament poetry and one on Old Testament prophecy. And then you've got a discussion board this week. Now, do remember what I've told you about discussion boards. You want to get your posts done by Friday night, midnight at the latest, and then you want to reply to 2 of your peers between Friday night and Monday night. And do comply with the grading rubric. You do need to cite sources and support your statements in your discussion board posts. And if you cite sources, there should be a bibliography as well. By the way, remember, do not post files in the discussion board. You can copy-paste into the discussion board from a file, or you can type directly into the discussion board. But a few of you have been posting files, and we prefer that you didn't do that in the discussion board, but rather type directly in, or as I say, copy-paste from your Word document into the discussion board. But again, please do not upload files to it. And again, in the discussion board, you want to have substantive material, thoughtful material. Quite impressed with the work that many of you are doing. And then in your replies to peers, remember those 3 criteria that I've given you. 1, you want to provide some encouraging compliments for any really good worded statements that your peers may make or any insights they may bring to the discussion that have encouraged you or helped you. Number 2, you want to provide some kind critique. That is, there may be things that you would take issue with in your peers' post. Well, in a kind way, do that. This is a discussion board, so we want to see you doing just that, discussing the issues at hand. And you don't always have to be in complete agreement, but just be able to support your disagreements. Again, cite your sources and do so properly according to Arabian writing style. And then lastly, try to relieve your peers with a good, open-ended, relevant question on the topic at hand. That should be a question that they can't simply answer with a yes or a no, but they've got to explain a little bit in their response if they choose to respond. But also, your posing that question is going to require some critical thinking on your end. And that's really what the discussion boards are about. In dealing with the topics put before you, we want you using good critical thinking skills as well as effective communication skills. So both your thinking and your writing skills are important. And again, all according to Turabian guidelines. You've got your 4.1 parallelism from Psalm 8 assignment as well. So just be sure to do that. And remember to go to the community discussion board too, and get acquainted with one another. If you haven't gone through the personal introductions, I'd really encourage you to do so. You can encourage one another, and knowing a little bit about one another can really go a long ways in helping you do that. You know the old story of needing to walk in another's footsteps. So reading these personal introductions can help you get much better acquainted. Well, there you are, another week's announcement and email alert completed. Looking forward to seeing your work. God bless.